Hello, Richard Spezzano here from Digitally Feelers, and today we're going to have the great paper escape, where we take a sketch and we're going to make a man rip himself out of the sketch and become a real man. So let's get started. Alright, so I created a new document, and the size of the document was 1280 by 980 at 150 pixels. And I pulled in some pictures ahead of time to save time on this tutorial. This one is a desktop background. All of these were gotten from the stock photos. Here I put desktop, and another one I put man with push-ups. So that's like about where I have it right now. So let's just leave the desktop. We're not sure exactly where we're going to put it, but let's somewhere like there is good. I brought in the man, and to save time once again, I brightened him up a little bit because he was really dark. Here was the original, except I made a mistake here, but it doesn't affect this. So I just added some brightness to him and gave him a mask. So that's all set up and ready to go. So let's move. I'm going to move these pictures out so they're not in the group. So first I'm going to bring up that desktop, and then I'm going to bring up the man out of the group. Okay, so now we can move him around as we need him. And then the next thing I think I'll do, oh yes, and I also have a sketch paper, which I just looked up, paper lined loose leaf or lined notebook paper, something like that. So that's going to go behind the man. And then now we're just going to figure out where and how to get this to work. So first we're going to duplicate this paper, and it's Control or Command J, or you can do Control C, copy and paste, but I like just to do Control or Command J. So now I have two sheets of paper, and I'm going to go to Arrange, flip horizontally, and I'm going to flip it and put it near here. Okay, so now I'm going to take this one, and I want to skew it. So if you put the cursor near the edges, you'll see an arrow key. So I'm going to kind of bring it up a little bit, and then I think I'll drag it a little shorter, because if it's on an angle, the illusion would be that it is shorter. So I think that kind of works. That's pretty good. And I might even make this one a little bit shorter, like that. Not so much. And maybe this one a little bit here. Okay, that looks pretty good. Now I'm going to take this one, and I'm going to duplicate it, Control or Command J, and then I'm going to move my arrow key to the right arrow key. No, I'm wrong. I'm sorry. I'm going to select the one below it and hit the arrow key maybe 1, 2, 3 times. And then I'm going to do Control or Command J again, and go to the one below it and go 3 times with the right arrow key. And I'll do it again and go one below it and go 3 times, and then again, and the one below it I'll go 3 times, and that looks pretty good. And then I think what I'll do, yeah, I think that's pretty good. And then on the bottom one, I'm going to give it a drop shadow. So I'll go out of shadow, and we're going to make the light kind of come from this way, sort of. So I want it to go kind of like that. And let's just bring the shadow offset. Let's see where we're going to end up with. Something in that area. Something like that, maybe. Maybe a little less of an angle. Yeah, I think that kind of works. So that's not bad. Now we're seeing a little bit of a shadow there. And then on this one, I'm going to do the same thing. So let's group all to one side. That's the side. And we'll make a group, and we'll call it right page. And then on this one, on this side, We're going to call it left page. And I think the angle maybe you don't really need. I'm not really sure, but you don't really need to show pages underneath there because it's flatter. So I think that's okay. So left page. But I think we still need a shadow under it. So let's do outer shadow again. And we'll start going that way. But of course we want the angle to be kind of like that, but a little bit closer. So let's see, maybe like that. I think that works pretty good. I think these actually, I might go down the line, and that's the top one. Maybe go down here and hit the arrow once or twice down. Same here. And just keep giving it a few down. Because I don't understand what that blur is under there. I don't know if that was in the original picture or not, so it could be. But I'm going to just live with it. I think I'll be okay with that for now. I'll fix it later if I need to. Okay, so now comes the man. He gets tricky. You know what? Let's group this now, the left and the right pages, and just say paper. Okay, so we're okay now. And this is desk, just to keep us in order. We'll get that last picture later. We're not ready for that. So now that we got the man here, let's see where we might want him. Maybe something like this. And now I'm going to duplicate him, Control Command J. I'm going to hide the one below, and I'm going to right click and rasterize and trim this man. And then I'm going to duplicate him again, so Control Command J. Let's hide the first one, and let's take the second one and turn it into a black and white. So that would be under Adjustments, black and white. And I'm just going to leave it. We can fix it later if we have to adjust that. And now I'm going to duplicate that black and white copy again. And this time I'm going to invert it. So it's Control or Command I. And I'm going to do a blend mode of, I think it's color dodge. Color dodge. Okay. And then I'm going to do a Gaussian blur. So we got to blur it a little until some of this comes back. Now we only really care about this bottom half. We're not worrying about the top half. So I want some of this to show. And because we did a black and white adjustment there, we could even play with this a little to see how much more we want to get in. Maybe like that. I'm just playing back and forth. Like that I like. I want to be able to see some of this. I don't want it so gray. And okay, I think that works. That's pretty good. Okay, so now we're going to group these two, the black and white, and then we're going to rasterize and trim one more time. And now what we need to do is warp this guy. We still have the one on top. We haven't touched him yet. But we want to warp him up to this kind of like this angle and also kind of flat, like he's showing like he's flat. So I'm going to use the warp tool right here, mesh warp tool. And you see this line right here? I think I'm going to kind of keep him coming up from this line. So I'm going to double click here. And then I'm going to start warping him to bring him on this page, kind of like I don't know. I just kind of want to show that he's on this page. And maybe actually I can make it a little flatter. Make it a little like that. And just want it to be higher than the other page, because when I do the other side, I want him to be coming out of it. So let's see. I think that might be okay. Not really 100% sure, but I think that's okay. All right, I can live with that, so I'll say apply. And now the next thing I want to do here is I need to mask it. And I think I'm going to mask it from about here, or close to this line. Now I'm going to go to the polygon tool, the freehand tool, and hit polygon on top. And I'm going to draw a line about here maybe, to here. And let's say like that, just to get the whole back half in. And then I'll make a mask. And deselect. So there we go. Now we have the back half of the man on the paper. So we need that man. Let's see, if we multiply him, the lines will show through also. So that works out pretty good. But we might want to duplicate that. So Control or Command J, and make this one on top. Well, let's not put that on multiply. Let's just say normal and bring the opacity down. Only because I really don't want the lines to be that high going through. So now let's bring back the other man, which is the top layer here. And what we have to do with him is we also have to cut him, because he's basically going to be from a drawing on paper, and we want him to like escape from the paper, lift himself out, and become human. So I guess we should name him if he's human. Let's see, what can we call him? Robert or Bill? Or, you know what? Okay, I think I'll stick with Robert. Okay, so from this point on, at this point on, since he's going to be a real human, I'm going to call him Robert. So we have to do like we did before. We need to mask him out from about where this one was, so we can get rid of this bottom half of him. So let's select Robert and give him a mask. So I'm going to pick the polygon tool and approximately the same area. So we're just going to do from here like this. And we'll just, doesn't have to be perfect. So we'll mask him out. And that means we're getting rid of this bottom half, and we'll fade that later. So that looks pretty good. And let's deselect now. And I think on the mask itself now, we will do a little bit of a fade. So let's take a paintbrush, a very soft paintbrush, and make sure you have black and white. And if I click X, it switches from black and white. And so I'm just going to kind of fade him in a little, just so we could see that he's coming from the drawing. I want it to be very soft. I'll make it large, and then I'll just touch here and there, give it a real nice softness to it. And I think that looks pretty good, actually. Okay, that's good. So now Robert needs to look like he's coming out more also. So I think from this point on, we need to rasterize him. It'll rasterize once we walk, but I want to rasterize and trim him. So I'm only working, rather than, let me rephrase that. If I hit warp, the whole thing is rasterized, and probably including the mask, but I want to rasterize and trim him, so I'm only working with this half. So I'm going to right click and say rasterize and trim. And now we're only working on this half. And I'm going to go to mesh warp, And remember before I wanted how I double clicked to stop so that you can make lines in the warp? I'm going to do the same thing just about here so that from this point on he doesn't move, because he can, but I'm going to make sure that I don't move anything from this point this further. So now I need to get him to look like he's more coming up, trying to get out, like he's escaping. He's becoming a human now. He doesn't want to be, I'm sorry, he doesn't want to be on, I can't even believe I came up with this idea. Because I don't know how, my brain is a little weird when I work on things, but he doesn't want to be on that paper. And you can see him struggling. Ugh, look at that, look at that. Oh man, look at him pushing his way out. Yeah, he's really trying hard to get himself out of there. I mean, there are other ways to do this. Again, I tell you all, these are short tutorials. You should really be working on other ways of doing, like be focused on getting it perfect. Like for example, you could have possibly, I didn't try it, but you could possibly have used liquify and froze this side. But in this case, I thought this would be a good way to do it. I kind of want him a little more, his hands look a little big to me, but I think that's not so bad. Let's see if we can pull this side up a little bit more like that. And I think that's pretty good, so I'm going to say apply. And yeah, I kind of like that. So now we have that going. Let's see what we have here. I forgot what part is what now. I think if we take the two black and white parts and maybe group and rasterize it, and we lose the white, but let's see if we can multiply it. We brought back the white. Okay. So, so now these two are rasterized. This is black and white. It's black and white. I think it was, did I say Robert or Bob? I don't even remember. Let's say black and white. I don't know. Let's say black and white Robert. And this is color Robert. I have to go back on the tape. I'm sure if I got it wrong, some of you will comment. So that's color Robert. Okay, now right here, I think there's a little bit of a problem. So I'm just going to take a little eraser right there and get rid of part of that sketch. I'm just tapping. I could have masked it out, but it's so simple, that spot. And maybe a little bit right here. It's only the black and white that it's covering. Okay. So now we got to make it look a little more realistic. So I'm going to try two different ways. Let's try this way and hope that it works. I'm going to duplicate the color Robert. Control or Command J, duplicate that layer. And on that layer, I am going to turn him, let's hide the top one. I'm going to turn him all black. So let's see, I'm going to select him. I'm control clicking on his picture, and with a paintbrush, I could do it a lot of ways, but with a paintbrush, I'm just going to paint him black. Just like that. Okay, that looks pretty good. There we go. And deselect. And then I'm going to turn him on again. And now I'm going to call this Robert Shadow. And now with Robert Shadow, I want to move him down just, we're assuming the light's coming kind of like this. You see the light on his shoulders, kind of from this side. Also a light coming this way here. So I'm just going to go with that kind of an idea. And I want to bring the hands back up. So I'm just going to try and do this. But I want the body down more Now I'm also going to warp that. So let's kind of bring that down, but we want to bring the hand back up. Let's see. And we could bring this hand. No, that doesn't look good, so let's try that. And that's close enough. We can play after that. So I'm going to hit apply, and then I'm going to do a live Gaussian blur just to see how much I can get out of it. And that's not bad. Let's kind of do that. Okay. Now remember, this is a sketch, so right here we won't have a shadow at all, but we will have it here as he's coming out. So I have to work on more of the shadow. So and so I'm going to take an eraser. I don't think we need it. I don't think there's a shadow on top of his hand here. And on top of his hand, I'm just tapping a little. And I'm going to be adding more shadow below and right here. So I'm going to add one more shadow. So I'm just going to add a new pick. I could do it on the same layer, but I'd like to have some more control over it. So I'm going to just say shadow 2. And it's a basic, it's a pixel layer, and with a brush, very soft brush again, I'm going to, when you're very close to the paper, your shadow's really, really dark. So make that smaller. I'm using my left bracket to make it smaller. My right bracket makes my brush bigger. Again, I'm using a soft brush, but I want it very dark right here. And I really don't want anything up here, but I'll get rid of more of that. Now I'm going to go wider, and I'm going to, and I do need to still blur that a little. I'm going to add more here. I think I'll cut back the opacity, so as I'm adding, it'll take a little bit. Kind of like, that's kind of how the shadow would look to me. And let's see, maybe even a little bit higher. Well, I don't like that, because if the light's coming this way, just a little bit, maybe even further out. And I think that looks pretty good, and maybe we'll give that a Gaussian blur again. Let's see how much, just a little this time, because I want it darker on that one. All right, I'm liking this so far. I might need more here because this whole thing would be shadowed, so let's just add a little bit more here. Yeah, I think that makes more sense. Actually, his head might even be down further here. But all right, well, we'll leave it. But his head really, I think, would be more here. All right, let's try that. Let's just add more right where his head we think would be, right about here. All right. And then maybe we'll get rid of some of the other head. I'll go to the other shadow, and I'll erase some of this one. Is that where I had it? I don't remember. First, let's get this one. Let's take that one, erase that. Oops, I want the opacity back up. This one. And then this one. Okay, so now let's go back to black on the brush and still add more right here, I think. All right. You need to work on it more, but you get the idea. I mean, this is a little bit, it's kind of working its way. His head is kind of down here, but maybe a little more, play around a little, you know what I mean. I'm not liking it right now, and I don't have really time because I want to continue on this tutorial. So I just want to make sure we get it all in. All right. You know what? I think even more here because of the head. Okay, I'm going to leave it. You really should work on it. This is not a good shadow. It should follow more the form of his body. I still keep coming back to it, sorry. But it's going to have to do in this particular case. Let's see. Now, did we get shadow here? I still think under the book we should add more shadows. So let's add another layer, a pixel layer under the book, and with the brush kind of go a little bit more like this, and this one. I'm going to hold shift and go there. I think that looks a little bit better. And not as busy. Let me just cut the opacity a little more and just add a little bit more like that. And because this is so close to the ground, this side, and my opacity is low, so I can just keep going over and over again. I think it should be darker here. And I'll just bring that a little bit up like that. Okay, so I think I'm okay with this part. So now comes, we need to change lighting. There's a lot of different things we need to do here. Oh, you know what? Let's first write on the notepad now before we change the lighting, because that's important. So let's take some letters, and let's go maybe from here. And I'm just going to type the, whoops. And I want to find a font, and I think I looked at one that I think it's called Noteworthy. I don't even know where it came from. Maybe it came with my computer or with, so I like that. So I'm going to make that one small. And I think I want to change the color to a little bit more of a gray. So I'm going to go to my color wheel and choose maybe right in the middle a gray, something to that effect. And I want that within the lines. And now I'm going to duplicate it, Control or Command J, move it down here, and type great. And I think great should be bigger. In fact, I'm going to say great paper. And then last word, I'm duplicating it again and going around here and escape. And maybe we'll move that right here, and I think I'll bring the down. So it's the great paper escape. And then let's duplicate that, Control or Command J, and do Affinity Photo. And let's see if we can get this to look about where we want it to be. Stay on the line. It would be about that way. Okay, and now because this book is a little bit shorter, I'm going to squeeze it slightly because you're looking at it on an angle. So now I'm Control Command J again, and I'm going to type photo. So next, we're going to bring in the Affinity logo, and I know I have one here, so let's take this. And last, we're going to have a lamp, and that's when we're going to do all the effects, which I think really make it with the lighting. So right now, let's just, whoops, sorry. Let's turn this on and bring this to the top. Let's go all the way to the top and bring this right here. And just pick a size that we think would work. I think this old one I had a 3D effect. We don't want that. So now that we have this in place, let's turn it to black and white. So we go to Adjustments, Black and White, and okay, that looks pretty good. And then I think what we'll do is, I think it should be really black and white. I mean, like contrast. So let's do curves on that. And let's see what we can do. Let's make it that way and maybe bring up some of the white. And maybe with a slight outline and effects. So let's see. Outline just a little bit. Just tiny bit like that. Okay, I think that's good. And now I'm going to rasterize that. And I'm not going to preserve the effects, just rasterize it. There we go. So that's closer to a black and white. Now I'm going to duplicate it. So Control or Command J. And now I'm going to invert it. And then we go to Color Dodge, which turns it the opposite. So now it's white, completely white. And now we need to add a Gaussian blow. We're doing just what we did to the man on top. And there we go. So we just need to add a little bit of maybe blur like that. It's not great, but, and I think we're going to rasterize that again. Well, we're going to group it first and rasterize it. And so now we can cut the opacity a little bit. I probably should have made the outline a little grayer, and I thought but it's too late now. Let's just leave it there. So let's just leave it. There's the Affinity Photo logo. So now comes the kind of interesting part, just to pull it all together. So let me bring in the lamp, which is the last picture I had. Let's drag that to the top. And let's see. So let's first select this lamp, mask it. So let's see, we're going to Selection Brush Tool. This shouldn't be too hard because it's black. My Alt to get rid of anything that I don't want. Wow, that selected it almost immediately. That's pretty good. It's one of the easiest selections I've ever had to do. And I don't really want this part, so I'm going Alt. And I need the middle. So Alt in the middle. And that looks really good, actually. So I'll hit Refine. And I'm okay with that. And say Apply. And now Control, oops, I'm not sure if I rasterize it, because I think you have to rasterize it. And Control or Command, actually I can just mask it. So let's mask it and deselect. There we go. So I didn't have to rasterize it. I apologize. Whoops. So now the color is completely wrong. So I think what I'll do now is I'll do under Hue and Saturation, I'm going to just desaturate it. I just want it to be black. And I'm okay with that. And now we're going to bring this maybe, let's think about the light as being here, maybe. I think let's show a little bit more of it, and maybe a little over this way. we're kind of doing this. And bigger, smaller. I want to make sure the affinity shows, so I'll make it smaller. Even it might not be perfect, but I want to show that Affinity Photo logo. So I think that's okay like that. It shows enough. All right, so here is the fun part. We're going to turn the lamp off, and now we're going to do layer, merge visible, which basically turns everything below doesn't need to be even seen anymore. So basically this is just one solid picture. So make sure you understand that it's one solid picture, not including this light on top. So I need to say that this is going to be the lit pic, right? I should say lit Robert. What do I call him? Robert? Okay. And then we're going to duplicate, Control or Command J, and this is going to be dark Robert. I hope the name Robert. I should go back in the beginning. All right, so what? If it's not Robert, we just change his name. So, and he's struggling. Look at his face. Isn't that great? He's like, ugh, get me out of this. Get me out of this thing. I don't want to be a sketch anymore. I want to be 3D. He's like Pinocchio. He wants to be a boy, except he wants to be a man. Okay, so here we go. Turn off dark Robert. We're only going to work on light Robert. And so we're going to take adjustment, curves, and we're going to bring it way up, like a crazy amount, and maybe still give it a little color like that. But we want it kind of bright. Maybe we'll give it also a color overlay. I may not do this in the end, but I'd like to try it. And let's go to overlay or screen. We'll see how we want. And maybe some kind of a warm light. Opacity's got to be way down. But maybe something like that. Let's see. Let's see the difference. If we turn it off and we turn it on. I think that's good. So now that's the lit Robert. That's the lit everything actually. And now we're going to turn to the dark Robert and do curves again. And we're going to bring it way, way down here. I think. Actually, I don't like that as much. It's kind of too dark. So I might just do an overlay on that and see if I can get it to, and it's got to be overlay, or maybe something even, let's go down the line. I just want it to be dark but not black completely. I think hard light is not bad. That's pin light I like. Luminosity. Okay, I'm going to go with luminosity. So we're going to keep him fairly dark like that. All right. And now we need to mask him. So we're going to put a mask on Robert. Okay, so now we're going to select the mask that we just made and go to our paintbrush. And we should be painting with black. So black will expose what's underneath. But first we need to turn on the lamp. So we're going to try and go down the line. I'm going to make it very wide and be soft, maybe even a little bit less opacity. So let's just kind of bring some light into this area. Like, where do you think the light will shine? I'm thinking kind of like this way. And I'm just kind of tapping and grabbing and moving. And if you think you have too much light, then you can just switch it to white and get rid of some of the light like that. Like if you think right there it would be darker, which I kind of like. And maybe a little bit lighter here. And maybe a little bit darker on the bottom here, because the light didn't reach it all. So you're playing, you're going from black to white just to give more reflection here. And I think that's kind of, maybe I want it a little darker up here, so let's go back to white, because I don't think this should be up here, should be nice. Now remember, you could always still change your darkness right here. You can see that? You can just bring it up or down because you have a color overlay, and that's where your darkness is coming from. And that kind of gives us more of an idea. So if you go back to the mask now, you could see how smooth you might have done it. So maybe a little bit more that way. And I'm going to go a little bit darker here. Okay, I think I like that. So I think we're going to make another total picture again. So let's layer, merge visible. And then now we have one final solid picture on top. And I think maybe we could do a split tone. So let's see how we get a split tone. Let me remember how to do it. Is it this one? Yeah, split toning. Here we go. And I think maybe we can go like from a red for the highlights. This is for now, the whole picture will change. And for the shadow, I think we'll go more of a blue, somewhere in that area. More highlights than shadow, so let's see how we can balance it the other way. I kind of like that. So let's see the difference. It's that and that. I kind of like the warmth of it, so I think the warmth is pretty good. So I think almost we're done, except maybe maybe some noise. Where would noise be? Let's see. Add noise. And I'm going to get a little bit of a close-up. So view, zoom, 100% just to see. Let's just add a little bit of noise to the whole picture. That's a lot of noise. We don't want that. But so if we just kind of touch it with a little bit of a grainy feel, I kind of like the look. And it kind of pulls it all together. So maybe too much. Hold on, let me go back a little. Let's just barely note. I want it to be barely noticeable. And it kind of really makes it feel like it's all one photo. So let's see the end here. I just realized that after I did all that, I forgot to put the holes. So just letting you know, that should have been done probably before all the lighting and everything here, but in this case, just for this tutorial, I'll just add them very quickly. So I'm going to choose the donut tool, and I'm going to hold shift and create some sort of donut, and maybe give it a gray, kind of a grayish color like that. And let me see, I think they allow you to go half. Let me get a close-up of what we're doing here. So yeah, it just allowed me to go half, and then I'll just go like something like that, and maybe a little bigger. Let's go back with that half angle here. More like that. Okay. And let's go wider here. And a little bit darker. Okay, and I'm going to select that and put a new layer on top of it, and maybe a little bit of white. Whoops, with a small brush. And very little opacity. I could probably do a gradient, but for this tutorial, I'm just gonna, no, I don't like that. Just maybe on the edge like that. And deselect, and I could lower the opacity on that a little bit, just to give it a little bit of a 3D effect. And then I'm gonna do another pixel layer and move it under the donut and take a paintbrush and use black, and I'm going to just put the shadow. Actually, that donut is not in the right place. I need to move it out a little bit like that. Like something like that. And let's just do this with the shadow again. There should be a little bit of a shadow up higher, so I'm going to lower the opacity even more, just showing kind of where this is. Oh, I just realized when I moved it, I didn't move the white above it. So let's do this. Again, I'm sorry, I'm doing this very quickly because I made a mistake on the other one, but let's group this. And now I'm just going to take maybe a smudge. Oh, I have to it's telling me it wants me to make it a pixel, so I did, and I just took a little smudge here. I'm just going to kind of make it work in there. This is not the way to do it. It's just that I just finished the whole tutorial and realized this wasn't there, but we'll just have to let this lay the way it is. And then I'll select both of these and group them, and we'll call it rings. And let's go back here, and now we take that ring, and I'm going to duplicate that group and bring that to the top. All right, so this one up here has to be much brighter. So, of course, we can easily do that with curves and just bring it way up to make it lighter like that. Just remember that this should have been done before we did all the lighting and all end of grain and everything under it. I apologize. I looked at it afterwards and I saw that it needed to be still done, but it still worked. And I think that's it. So the great paper escape, Robert escapes from the paper and he becomes a real man. And this could be a new fairy tale for people. Just he's a push-up man who just escapes. He's so strong, he rips himself out of the paper. So I hope you liked this tutorial, and if you did, please click like and subscribe, and have a good day.